to talk about India. Is 1 crore rupees enough to start a restaurant?
I'll talk about a failure of mine.
How does it affect your margins when people don't pay service charge?
Of course, people at 16 and 17 weren't allowed in clubs, but one thing I realized very soon on, there were these other bigger promoters in Bombay who would host events and nightclubs. They started hearing about me doing all of these events and they said, hey, why don't you join in? And every couple that enters on your guest list, we'll pay you 150 rupees for it. If tomorrow I have to start a Mia Kebabs or if tomorrow I have to start a Rajdhani, I think I would fail at it terribly. At one given point of time, we would very easily give up a lot of equity just to get capital. Today, we would be way more mindful about that.
Today we are talking about one of those industries, brutal industries, which has the highest failure rates, more than 80%. And now I have you sitting here who is running 6 restaurants with different identities, all profitable, all relevant. I want to know your story. How did this start? Tell me.
So, Ujjwal, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to you today. Um, a lot of times that even either when I meet my friends or I'm just outside in probably a convention or a conference and talking about it, these are generally the questions that people want to start, and especially newer people who are getting into the industry now.
Mm.
And I mean, the sensibility that I come from is that if we can contribute back to the society in any way, just great.
Mm.
So super happy to be here and talk to you about everything restaurants.
Thank you so much. Thank
Today.
you for your time.
Yes. So first, let me introduce you to the group.
Mm.
The name of our company is Chrome Hospitality. We've been in existence running our own restaurants as a hospitality group for the last 4.5 years. We have 9 restaurants today in Bombay. Some of our brands are there's a cocktail bar brand called Late Checkout, which is the newest one, and also project driven completely out of passion, and that's in Lower Parel in Bombay. Our next brand is called Gigi, which is in Bandra. That's one of our landmark brands. One brand that is extremely close to me and serves some of the best food in Bombay is called Eve. We have 3 outlets of that. That's in Powai, Worli, and Santa Cruz. We have a fourth outlet of Eve, which is now coming up in Goregaon very soon. Except for that, we have a brand called Lila, which is um, experiential, small plates, sharing plates, driven brand, place that serves extremely soulful food. That's in BKC, which is the corporate hub of Bombay. And except for that, we run 2 more casual dining red brands. One is called Donna Delhi, which is in Bandra, and the other one is called Shai, which is in Chembur.
Okay.
And all of these form the Chrome Hospitality portfolio.
Okay. So, how did this start? What was the seed that led to you starting restaurants in Bombay?
So restaurants as an industry, when someone starts off, is it has to be passion.
Hmm.
Passion for food, passion for hospitality, passion for service, passion to wanting to do something that actually engulfs your creative output. Having said that, the seed for me was, with all of this, a need to make some extra pocket money because my journey started 14 years back when I was in college.
Hmm.
I was in HR college, and I was 16. And what I started doing is I started hosting college social
Hmm.
for everybody in that age group. Of course, people at 16 and 17 weren't allowed in clubs, but one thing I realized very soon on after promoting the prom night of my college is that people really wanted to go out. They wanted to meet more like-minded people, step out, socialize, be at parties. So what we would do is we would go to all these bars and nightclubs in the area which are shut in the day,
Mhm.
and I would just request them, hey, can you lease out the space to me?
Mhm.
I need it from say 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon,
Mhm.
and I just want to host a college social sort of an event over here where I'd just go out and tell people, hey, there's this event happening and please come. One random idea, very exclusive club in South Bombay, and we booked it out in the afternoon, paid them a rental value, and what I did is I was decent at Photoshop, just made a creative that said, this is your invite, kept a random name for it. I think Levels was the first event name with some hip hop music, etc. And I would just go around colleges selling those tickets.
Hmm.
300 rupees entry, 500 rupees entry, so on and so forth. And a lot of people would show up, and I mean, I felt, and what I understood at that time, a need for a 16 or a 17-year-old to go out
Hmm.
and party was a lot. And they were also the only people who didn't mind
Hmm.
partying at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon,
Wow.
because that's when everyone's absolutely free. So we started doing that, and it just became a raging hit. Um, a lot of people started coming for it, and soon there were these other bigger promoters in Bombay who would host events and nightclubs. They started hearing about me doing all of these events, and they said, "Hey, why don't you join in? And every couple that enters on your guest list, we'll pay you 150 rupees for it." And that to me was great. I want extra pocket money. I'm in a South Bombay college. My friends have a spending capacity which is way more than mine, and I wanted to make some money on the side. I said, "This is fantastic. Let me start doing this." We all had just gotten BBMs at that time,
Yes.
BlackBerry phones with these BBM messengers on it, and everybody who I would meet, I would just connect with them, and then I would send them these broadcast messages inviting them to my club gigs.
Hmm.
Um, Soon we had 80 people, 100 people, 200 people
Come.
coming on my guest list to these events, and that's when I was like, okay, there's really something in it. Couple of our friends got together, and we wanted to formalize this in some way.
Hmm.
We thought, wow, we are now businessmen at 17, and let's try and put an identity to this. Fast and the Furious had just come out, and Vin Diesel was driving in these really swanky cars with chromium plates, and that just hit me, and I was like, Chrome is a very cool name.
Ah.
So that's why we picked it up, called it Chrome Nightlife. Again, went back to Photoshop, made a quick logo, and we started hosting a lot more of these gigs. So throughout my college life, which is I think 16 to till the time I was 20, 21, till I graduated,
Hmm.
Chrome Nightlife would do a lot of stuff in Bombay. We were working with a lot of different nightclubs and bars to host events. We would host our sundowners and pool parties. The larger concerts that were happening, EVC and Sunburn and Supersonic, we would sell offline tickets for them for concerts. We also got down a lot of international artists ourselves by hosting them in Bombay. So yeah, those 4 5 years we actually partied a lot, and the byproduct of that, of course, we were making a lot of money doing that. So
Interesting.
this was the initial seed. Um, Unknowingly,
Hmm.
what we were actually learning from Chrome Nightlife was how to get sales or revenue for restaurants and
Hmm.
bars, and how do we really maximize that. How having a great network of people actually builds consumership for a restaurant. How do you get the same people to come to your spaces again and again by giving them great hospitality, great service?
Hmm.
How I could probably be a face of a restaurant, right, and actually get people to come to that restaurant because I was doing something there. So, and all of this was happening unknowingly.
Hmm.
This wasn't me trying to put in effort. My thing was I wanted to make extra pocket
Pocket
money,
money.
and number one, and also every time I'm at these events, because I'm hosting it, everything was free for me.
Hmm.
So that was the core reason I was doing this. But I didn't know there was so much of a back learning that was happening.
Happening.
And eventually, when I graduated from college, this whole coming home at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. was really getting to me. I knew I had to cut it off. I also started getting a little embarrassed by sending regular broadcast messages to everyone coming for events.
For the party.
And I needed a change. It was just happening for too long.
Hmm.
Mm, I knew I was decently good at Photoshop. Facebook had come out.
Hmm.
Not too many people knew how to use Facebook. So I said, hey, why don't I, try and help people run their Facebook pages? And I'll charge them for that. I knew a lot of restaurants and bars needed it because, anyways, I was working with them.
Hmm.
So quickly went back to Photoshop, changed Chrome Nightlife to Chrome Communications, and announced that from now on we are a agency,
Marketing company.
marketing company,
Wow.
and we will charge you a retainer. And then some restaurant partner said, okay, I will pay you 1,000 rupees a month, manage my Facebook page, and I was like, it's okay. Let me jump into it and figure it out. Um, Started this when I was 21. I ran that agency till I think I was 26.
26, okay.
And really scaled it. So as an agency, we then expanded services. Social media is something we started with, but eventually it was social media marketing, PR, branding, brand strategy, giving the restaurants everything they needed to get on floor with, and also our edge that we had over the other marketing companies were an XYZ marketing company would come to a restaurant and give them all these marketing jargons that they had learned in MBA school. Do this, and this is brand tonality, and this. So we are obviously even like we thought like that, but one thing which was a very significant addition that we got was hardcore revenue. When restaurants started working with us, their sales actually went up. And this was because of the 5 years of nightlife that we had done. We knew what would actually build consumers in restaurants. And we had this existing network, which anyone who we would handle marketing for, we would tap into that network and ask people to keep uh, coming. So that agency started doing really well. And that's when my then girlfriend, now wife, we also partnered up. We ran the agency business together. She would look at all the IPs and large scale events. I was looking at more of the marketing for restaurants. And we ran that agency for a good number of years before getting an opportunity to start our first restaurant, which was Eve in Powai. And from there, we scaled down the agency, um, got in most of our team members to join the hospitality wing, and again went back to Photoshop. Chrome Communications was now Chrome Hospitality, with Eve Pawai as our first restaurant. And the last 4 years, we've been scaling and starting our restaurants.
So, I got this lesson from what you said. Ki every now and then you have to figure out what you have to do, what is the next step if you have to build and move forward, right? And you have been doing this since when you were 17, 16 or 17.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that you learned lessons, life gave you lessons about money, relationships, and everything that no degree could ever teach you.
For sure. I mean, when you start making nightlife money, right? If the sale of a restaurant in a particular night was 4.5 lakhs, they would pay us 10% of that.
Wow.
45,000 a night is what he would give us when we were leaving the place in the
At
night.
the age of
17. You don't know what to do with that.
Hmm.
And at that time, no one's telling you, oh, put this in mutual funds, put it in an FD. And if someone tells you that, also, like, bro, just don't talk nonsense with me. Right? At 17, you don't care. What we would do is one of the places that we were doing was at Kolaba. I would finish the club, take that money, go to Taj Palace, spend it over there.
The whole.
Because what to do with it?
Exactly.
And I remember once going to Trident, the Ferragamo showroom had just opened up. And I was like, I'm doing great. I'm 18 and I'm making this money. Let me go buy myself a belt and go to the Taj Palace bakery and just buy like so much food and just distribute it to my friends, because there was literally no thought process of accountability at that time, which later when I started my agency and I started getting retainer money, and I knew that I'm going to work 30 days a month, and end of the month, after a 30-day further credit period, is this is what I'm going to get paid. Did I actually start realizing the value? And I just went back into how reckless we were when we were running the nightlife company, to how important cash flow management is.
Yes.
Because it doesn't exist forever. It's great when it's there, and when
true.
it's not there, you really need to strap yourself. And yeah, so that was one of the biggest learnings we had right after our first pivot.
So Pawan, आपने experience ले लिया पहले तो शुरुआत में night life and all that. So you understood what people need and how should restaurants sell, right? And you put all that knowledge into building restaurants for yourself. तो अब सब restaurants है. Usually what I think is कि अगर कोई restaurant चलने लगता है तो वो अपनी same name से कोई branch खोल लेते हैं, right? But you happen to open different things, different experiences for people. Why is that so?
So when we started our restaurants, our approach was very clear. We are going to create brands for the people who are in that vicinity always. Bombay is a very large city. And what we realized is that the expectations of a people from a particular brand in every area of the city is very different. The first restaurant when we started in Powai, we actually did a very strong deep dive. And we spent months just going to those same restaurants in the area every single day, understanding what is working, what is not working, what's the gap. And what we realized is that Powai had become a hub where some of the top CEOs were coming on a daily basis. It was a space where some of the highest, or rather, let me correct it, the most expensive real estate in terms of residential and corporates were there.
Mm.
Powai was a space where the number of corporates coming to Powai every day to work was huge, and it was in tally with the people who actually lived in Powai. So it was this great bubble of its own, right? People in Powai didn't want to travel to Bandra for luxury experiences.
Mhm.
But at the same time, Powai was a space which was aspirational for the people who lived in Thane, Kalyan,
Mm.
Ulasnagar, etc.
Mhm.
So for them, the luxury outing was coming to Powai.
Mhm.
Did Powai have luxury spaces? No. People were still treating Powai restaurants saying that this is not Bandra and you're not going to get a high APC here, which we felt was not in the right direction. So when Eve opened up, and it's been 3.5 years since, I think it has brought about a change in power where people now look at restaurants differently because of Eve. And from our understanding, I think the highest per square feet revenue in a restaurant space in Powai is with Eve.
How
Our
much can I ask?
So let me draw it this way to also make it easier for the audience. Generally, what we calculate is an average per cover in a restaurant.
Okay.
Um, in say delivery kitchens, it's about 250 to 300 in
Mm.
most of them.
Mm.
In say more expensive delivery kitchens would be about say 800 to 700,
Mm.
etc. Casual dining restaurants is generally between 1200 to 1500. Um, at Eve, it's 2250
Average
per
revenue per
cover who
customer.
visits Eve,
Okay.
right?
That's big enough.
So that is almost 30% more than what you would get at any other restaurant in Powai. And there were multiple factors that contributed to that, including the way we did up our space. Everything from the time you enter on the ground floor, you take our library staircase that leads you onto the first floor. Um, Moving on to the way the interiors are done, the way our private dining sections are. We have a washroom which is hidden behind a wardrobe door, and these smaller elements that we've added within the space,
Mhm.
and keeping in mind that the cuisine that we serve at Eve
Mm.
was not restrictive. It is a chef driven space where the chef actually decides the kind of menu that should be, and it is not cuisine restrictive. So we were able to serve multiple cuisines within the same space, but each of them extremely elevated. And all of this came together to be a rage in Powai.
So you understand the vibe, right? The atmosphere, staffs, uh, lightings हो गई, music हो गया. What is your framework when you go to design a restaurant?
I mean, a lot of them, right? There are multiple pillars of a restaurant, and each of them are equally important, if not more than the other. The first thing we start off with is the vibe of the space.
Hmm.
For us, that is extremely crucial. What we truly believe
Mhm.
is that going to restaurants is a form of someone wanting to entertain themselves,
Correct.
right? In a city like Mumbai, I have put entertainment in three zones. You either go to a restaurant, cafe, bar, alternatively, you go to a mall, alternatively, you go to a movie theater.
Hmm.
We're restrictive with these three formats of outdoor entertainment. The closest to everybody is catching up on food, and that is something that the city loves to do. Um, Now, if that is the point, right, of someone having to go out, which is, and also a very key sort of a human instinct, right, going to a place, meeting more people, hanging out, then the spaces need to actually be ready to do that,
Hmm.
right? So what we say is that yeah, the food and the beverage program is extremely important to us, but having a space that welcomes you and makes you feel like you want to spend time there, makes you feel like you want to celebrate your occasion there, makes you feel like you belong there, is something that's extremely important.
Mhm.
So we create multiple touch points. As soon as we get a property, our first brain starts going in, okay, what are the touch points that we want to create here, right? So that is extremely important. Number two is our hospitality, which again is tier one for us. um, the way a guest feels from the time they give their car to the valet
Mhm.
till the time they are dropped back to the valet is everything that we want to control. Um, from how the valet guy greets you, how the security greets you, how my guest relation team greets you, escorts you to the table. Once you're seated, what happens that time is pretty much scripted like a play. And that same play is then performed on a day to day basis. It is not left over to someone's imagination, that say if I am in this mood today, this is how the guest will be treated. And if I'm a server and I've had a bad day, your experience will be bad. If I've had a good day, your experience will be good. We pretty much try and script and completely do a show flow of the entire experience of a guest pre our opening. So, and then when the team starts doing it on a day-to-day basis, they just keep getting extremely good at it.
So coming back to experience, are there any small things that guests don't see but they feel if this is not there, if something is off, the experience will be bad? I mean, an advice for restaurateurs who are listening to this podcast: what small things they can do well in order for the customer to make sure that customer keeps coming back to them.
I mean, there are so many things in a restaurant which are invisible to the eye,
Mm.
but subconsciously are actually making you feel happy or not happy about the meal, right? One thing that is extremely again close to me, which I pay a lot of attention to, is the volume of music in a restaurant, right? Anyone who is above the age of 30 or say even later, say a 28 or plus,
Mm.
the habit of that person is they are meeting each other after a long week of work
Mm.
on a Friday to actually sit, talk to them, discuss. Women, when they meet, they love to talk about how their week went. Men, when they talk, they are ranting about things that went up or down. They're, having their own sort of conversation with their boys. If it's a group, they want to know, how did someone else spend their weekend, where did they travel, etc.
Mhm.
When the music volume is too high, you then have to start speaking louder,
Mm.
which actually puts off a lot of people. And I am one person who really gets affected by that myself also. So I make sure that any of the Chrome restaurants you go to,
Mm.
the music is always maintained at a certain volume that you never have to raise your voice to talk to somebody else,
Mm.
right? The way you and me are talking now, that is how the
That is normal.
conversation should go. The music is a mood uplifter in the background with the right choice of music that makes me feel happy. I'm listening to songs which make me feel nostalgic, that put a memory in my head, that are cheering me up more. The volume is not the driver of consumption ever, which I think many people go wrong with. What they feel, 11:30 बज गया ना, volume बढ़ा दो, अभी bar night होगा. Your customer is not thinking like that. Customer does not want a bar night. There are so many times I am catching up with my friends and we are probably hanging out till 1:30 a.m. together, but the idea is to meet and talk. The idea is to not at the age of 30 start dancing around your table after 11:30 just because there's a time clock, right? People don't follow that, which I think a lot of restaurants don't get it. And that is one. But except for that, just your restaurant smelling really nice is so important. So when you enter, you already know you're in a great space. The same scent being constant actually then becomes your brand communication, which again people don't realize. I've been to restaurants where every month there is a new scent and then there is no relatability. And then there are restaurants where every time you go, you start relating that scent to, oh, this is their fragrance, right? So in fact, even then when you get that fragrance outside, you're like, this is with that brand. So example, at any of the eves you go to, all the three locations have the same fragrance we use, which is invisible, but really get people a sense of relatability. The way the team is groomed, the uniforms, everything from our flooring to curtains is matched in a certain aesthetic sense. And yeah, I mean these are just some of the things, but there's this whole checklist that we have with hundreds of things that we are actively looking at on a day-to-day basis.
So small things do matter.
Small things matter the most.
Like you said, the experience so breaks the whole vibe of the restaurant, right? But I have seen restaurants where the experience is not good, the music is loud, the furniture is not good, but still you will see lines in front of those restaurants where people are going bonkers about it कि यहाँ का खाना तो खाना ही है, right? How do you differentiate the experience between these two? Like, food is the most important thing, right?
So what I would say, the product is the most important. Without the product being correct, nothing can work. What matters is that at the scale of the restaurant you're running, what is your product?
Hmm.
Are you clearly defining yourself as my product is food? Are you saying my product is the experience? Are you saying my product is the cheapest alcohol? Right? What category are you catering in? That is what defines your product. In our restaurants, the experience is the product, right? The reason we can command an APC of and try to get as close to a 2250 is because they are paying for an experience, right? So what we're saying is now there is no commodity. Everything is based on the service quotient. Everything is based on the vibe quotient, which cannot be defined in, say, a numeric term. But example of another restaurant where I'll tell you a couple of my own examples, right? And some of my most favorite eats in Bombay. There's this place on Linking Road in Bandra. It's called Quality Frankie. I've been eating there for the last, I don't know, 17, 18, 20 years. As far as I can remember, as a school kid, right? It's a tiny shop, which is, I wouldn't even call it a shop, right? On Linking Road. And it's a cult favorite. The Frankie is probably 150 rupees, maybe, right? And I regularly eat that. It's clear his name is Quality Frankie. There is no experience, there is no interiors, there is no uniform the guy wears who makes the Frankie, right? There is no branding on the tissue paper or even the wrapper that he gives it in. It is Quality Frankie, good quality Frankie, right? Another example I'd give you, and a conversation that you and me were having, some time back, Mia Kebabs, right? You're a fan of it, I'm a fan of it. Mia Kebabs, great quality meat, done on the spot, hot, good chutney and onions with that. Soulful, right? When these restaurants are there, right, they're not saying that come to me for the experience, come to me for my interiors, come to me for my furniture. They are clear that I'm going to give you a food product which is fantastic, right? There's also similar to another place I go to, which is extremely popular for their dosas and idli. And I regularly eat there. I'm not going there from an experience point of view. I'm going there to satiate my craving, to make sure that that particular food item that I want to eat, that's sorted, and that is my experience that I'm left with. Then there are other places where I would go to celebrate occasions, right? It's my birthday, I want to have a sit down dinner, I want to book a private dining room with a couple of my friends. I'm ready to shell out 2,500 per person, but I probably want a great bottle of scotch on my table, right? So there are restaurants in every category where different age groups would go to. For our restaurants, we're targeting an age group of a 25 plus up to, say, probably a 65, right? We're talking about people who have been successful in their lives. They have now made it, they want great experience for themselves. We're talking about people who have an aspirational quotient that, okay, if I'm taking my girlfriend out, or for a girlfriend saying that if I want to surprise my boyfriend on his birthday, this is the place I want to do the whole setting at, right? So when we're catering to that category of restaurants, the expectation from that category differs.
So, according to you, one of the successful mantras of running a restaurant is to define a product, and every restaurant has a different product that they can define. कि ये हमारा USP है. If we are doing good in this, we'll be better off.
So, I'm so glad you brought this up. I feel the first thing to do is define who you are as a person. And this takes me back to your thought of why restaurants fail. If you yourself are a person who, example, loves Mia Kebabs, right? Would you be successful if you opened a European fine dining restaurant where everyone has caviar when they enter and serving milk washed cocktails?
No.
Right. At the same time, if you're a guy who loves having pure veg South Indian food, who has never touched non-veg in his life, who's never touched cocktails in his life or alcohol in his life, if you start a bar serving the cheapest alcohol, which is on till 5 in the morning, would you be successful? So I feel, do what comes to you truly. I have seen people who would probably be connoisseurs when it comes to, say, going to Rajdhani and eating a thali, right? When they do their festivals, they would be the people who know every dish on the menu. But then they end up opening a restaurant or a nightclub which is serving cuisine that they themselves don't enjoy. Then if you're yourself not a customer to the product you create, who have you created for and how do you understand that, TJ? For me and my wife, all the restaurants that we've created is because of the people who we are. It is experiences that we've had during our travels or our favorite food memories, etc. We're putting that on a plate. Also, from the time I started my first restaurant to today, when I started Eve, I was the consumer myself, and probably I would be the biggest voice behind a brand like Eve. Today, I am much more well traveled. My wife and I love having probably some of the best wines in the world. We try and visit as many vineyards as possible. I have become someone who deeply admires the technique behind a good cocktail. I have been to probably some of the best cocktail bars in the world. So today, when I start late checkout, it is coming from an angle of who I am as a person, right?
Hmm.
If tomorrow I have to start a Mia Kebabs or if tomorrow I have to start a Rajdhani, I think I would fail at it terribly
Hmm.
because I am not the person for that, right?
Right.
So I think anyone starting a restaurant should really understand who they are. If you're a great pastry chef,
Hmm.
right? I think it'd be great if you do something in pastry
Hmm.
versus actually trying to open South Indian.
Correct.
So don't do what the market is revolving around today because the market will change.
Correct.
Market will change after every 3 months, trends will change.
Hmm.
What will not change is your own personality.
Hmm. That's a
What will
good point.
not change is how you feel about the product. Today, when I go to Eve, all the items on the menu, I can stand and tell stories behind every item because I have curated that. That
Hmm.
is me as a person on that menu. Today, late checkout's cocktail menu is me as a person on that cocktail menu. When I was designing them, the emotions I went through, I remember, right?
Ah.
So it's extremely crucial for someone who's starting a restaurant to start something that they truly believe in and they themselves can be a spokesperson for that.
So I think your center of focus is experience.
Experience being center.
Yes. But do you think this is the reason why 90% of the restaurants fail? Because they don't provide an experience?
So, I mean, that's a much larger topic to me. I have also, while I'm only 31, I've spent, I would say, the last 14 years, almost 50% of my life today in this industry already. And that has got me to understand too many pointers why a restaurant would not do well. Number one, of course, has to be the product. And I would engulf all of this into the product, right? From the location to the space, how you've created the vibe, your hospitality, your food, drinks, etc. The product is core. It needs to be insane. Then, if there are some mismatches, also, the product will manage itself. But the product is most important. It eventually is what will define what your top line is going to be, right? Now, once the product is good and you are matching your top line, the next thing that really comes is how do you manage your P&L, which I feel takes a lot of time to actually understand. And a lot of newer people who start restaurants, while some of them really manage to get a great product, run their P&Ls in a very inefficient way, which then starts hurting their pocket a lot. The recovery rates go for a toss. Starting a restaurant is a very capex intensive business. So every time you need to launch a restaurant, on an average, you'll end up spending 10,000 rupees a square foot to start it, give or take 10-15% here and there. And I'm talking about this is generally for any casual dining restaurant that opens up. Eventually, including security deposits and end to end, you're in the range of 10 to 12,000 rupees a square feet. So if that is how capex intensive the business is, your agreements with your leases, which again 90% of the people would lease a property to start a restaurant, would be a 5-year agreement, right? So now the idea is how many years do you recover your capex, and then how many more years do you actually make money on top of it? So having all these formulas in place is something that takes someone some time to actually get there, which I feel is a larger reason why restaurants fail.
So where do people go wrong? Because you talk about P&Ls, because people don't manage cash flows. They don't look at food margins, because in this industry the food prices swing so much that
Yeah,
there's a 3 to 5% up and down here and there.
always. Yeah.
So can that be a reason as well?
So, understanding the MIS and actually building efficiency of that is one of the key responsibilities that me, along with my core team, we undertake at Chrome. And on a day to day basis, what we're ideally trying to do is build efficiency so that when in the coming month, on the 10th of the month, which is our fixed date to sit on the PNL for the previous month, that's when we sit and discuss, we need a great or say a very brighter number, right? What we have internally benchmarked is our EBITDA of the month. We want to try and get it to as close to 30% as possible.
EBITDA after all,
After every expense, this is just pre taxes and depreciation. We need to get to a 30% positive in terms of our
That's too
number.
good. Thirty
Right.
percent is too good.
That's what we optimize for.
Mm.
Now, what we've done is we've backtracked everything else from there. So, what we ideally do is we cap our consumption to 25% of the month, which means throughout the month, we ensure our purchases don't exceed 27%.
Okay.
If our purchases are between 27 to 28%, keeping in mind 3% will be the closing stock of the month. So we cap our consumption to 22 to 25% of the month, which leaves our gross profit margin anywhere between 75 to 78% in a month. This is something that there is a dedicated team who only works making sure this is happening, right? They would get deep into our non-food costs, everything from a tissue paper or a stirrer to the phenyl we are using to mop the floors, the hand wash in the washrooms, everything optimizing on a day-to-day basis. The smaller things being this, the larger of course being our liquor and food purchases. All of this optimizes to the consumption getting capped at 25%, leaving us with 75% in terms of our gross margins. Our salaries are again capped at 15%. On some months we might take it to 17% where we know the volume of business is going to be extremely high and we need more, but on a monthly basis we'll cap it at 15% always. 60% is now what we are left with. Out of the 60%, now to ensure the EBITDA is 30, we need to make sure the rent now does not increases more than 15% of the month, which is inclusive of the GST cost. So ideally it would be 13% plus GST, which would be 15% on my rental. Okay. Right? The pending 15% now is for all my other indirect and direct expenses. Right? That is what would leave me with an EBITDA of 30. Optimizing this on a month basis and keeping an extremely close eye on these numbers, we do our weekly meetings, which happens on every Tuesday. And every Tuesday, what we do is we see how the week went in the previous sort of a week, and we tally our numbers. Are we still running on our 100? Yes or no? So if say week 1 and week 2 generally are loose for us, because most of the purchases happen at that time, and then slowly we'll sort of dilute that over the month. So if say a week 1 or week 2 is working at 33 or 34% in terms of purchase, for the rest of the month we need to get it down to 21 or 22 and then average at about 27 or 28. So this is basically some sort of a internal calculation and math we've developed. And now after developing that one restaurant, what we've actually done is try to replicate this across our formats. And we've had a very good success rate trying to do this at most of our restaurants. Also, one very strong driver over here is the APC. We need to drive an APC of 2,000 rupees or more per restaurant. Because if
Average
that
cover.
comes down, then this again math goes
Average
for
cover
us,
you
yeah.
mean, right?
So the idea is optimize your MIS with these percentages, but at the same time, make sure that on ground your APC does that with your menu engineering then becomes an extremely crucial part, making sure that your APC is that.
If you break it down, 2000 rupees का average customer हमारा cover है, उसमें से 25% is in the consumption, right? So 2000 में से 600 नहीं, let's 500 rupees का तो food cost
हो गया.
हाँ. Then we come to rents and all. 15% is capped for rents, right? ऐसे करते करते you're left with 600 rupees per person.
Yes.
Fair enough. That's good.
And ideally at that 600, if I make sure that I am still getting a 30%, which is my annual average. There are some months we would do 20 to 23% on our EBITDA. There are some months we would say probably a month like a December, we would do 33%. Right? You'll average of annual at, we
30.
try to get as close to 30, but maybe there are years we've even done 27 or 28, which is fantastic. If we do that, then we make sure that we're recovering the capex in about 2 years.
But ऐसा कभी हुआ है कि you are compromising on food just because you have to stay in the margin 25% वाली चीज?
So by default, because we are in the luxury segment, we can't afford to do that. So the idea, the reason why that 2000 APC is important is so that we don't do this, right? Our brand mandates are so strong that there are fixed vendors on a group level, and that is the kind of quality we have to deliver.
Maintain. Yeah.
Right. So the idea is we might charge a premium on our selling price, but never compromise on our ingredient quality. And what we've realized is that a city like Mumbai has more than enough people who are ready to pay a little bit of a premium for great quality, great service, great location, great ambience.
How does it affect your margins when people don't pay service charge?
This is actually a very touchy topic, and there have been a lot of court rulings and court cases on service charge. Is it legal, not legal, etc. So anyway, I don't want to take a stance on that today. Personally, Every time I'm traveling, either abroad or in India or in Bombay, wherever any restaurant I would go to, there is a certain sense I have of 8 to 12% of the bill. That is the kind of service fee I want to leave back. And it is a general sort of a thing that people follow around the world. In India, a lot of restaurants would charge between 8 to 10%, and most of our restaurants also would charge that. And the idea of this service charges, it goes as a tip ratio to your team members.
Okay.
Right. Since the tipping culture in India is not very organized, the service charge on the bill then just puts it as a base sort of skeleton on what you need to follow. Um, Irrespective, because that is not a part of our P&L, if guests choose to not pay the service charge, it doesn't affect our P&L. At Chrome, in perspective, what we do is we anyway pay our teams service charges in entirety. So, say for example, if a guest even chooses not to, from our company, it goes to them. The idea is that service as a business, right? In any industry, not only hospitality, has service charges attached to that. If you are flying with any airline, the attendants who are taking care of you are paid a service charge, which is a part of a ticket that you pay, right? And similarly, in any other industry where there are humans serving you, a service charge is always a part of that, including movie tickets.
Correct.
Right. So it's just highlighted more in restaurants because you always end up seeing the bill break up. Versus other services, when you book, it's always an all-in cost that you pay. Most of the restaurants, what they would do earlier is they would have their normal cost and then they would put a service charge on top. A lot of restaurants who've now removed the service charges after the rulings have just increased their pricing by 10% and made it a part of that. So you're paying right now irrespective. It's not like you're not paying. It's just that earlier you had a choice of do you want to or not. Now it's compulsory because those restaurants have added it as a part of the bill. So
if it hurts restaurants, we as finance influencers started the trend of not paying the service bill. Okay, so do you use any psychological hacks for on your customers so that they spend more in your restaurants?
So the idea of not paying more, the right terminology would be how to sort of increase spending for a customer. So again, part number one being product, right? If they've had two dishes, they really like both of them, they would want to order the third one. If they've really enjoyed their appetizer and main course, even if they didn't feel like having a dessert, they would end up because they're like, the food over here is so good. How can I not try the desserts and leave? Right. So number one is product superiority. That needs to be there, right? For them to want to try more of the products. That is number one. Part number two is definitely keep good matchups. Saying example, if you have a great shrimp dish, right, it would be a very good idea to have good breads to accompany that, which you can just dip in the sauce and have. That would sort of be an add-on. Very similar to how if you order burgers, you always want a fries with it. If you are ordering a fries, you will always order two dips with it. If you are ordering all of this, you would just want to add on a Coke to it. So the idea is every restaurant, I just gave you a McDonald's example, but every restaurant has these couple of add-ons that are attached to their main dish that just generally goes very well, right? So you end up doing that. If you order gulab jamun, you want to order rabri with it, right? So things like that. Have your menu mechanism in a way which is very open to add-ons. That would be number two. Part number three is I feel always either on your menu or outside, give a benefit to a customer on a bulk price. If you know that there is a group of 10 sitting, if they are going to order 10 beers, why don't you offer them a bucket of 6? So instead of 10, they'll end up ordering 12.
12.
They anyways will end up consuming it, right?
Correct.
Maybe they might get some value savings also. But at the same time, if you're moving bulk stock, it's great for a restaurant. So, I mean, these are things, but this should never be a core focus. Your core focus should always be product and hospitality. Once you really mastered that, and now you know that customers are really having a good time, think of things that could make their experience better. So I would say these practices are only good if they're adding value to a customer's journey in your restaurant, not to be done in a way to purely increase spending, because that's not the business you're in.
Since you're in the food business, do you think dining experiences or delivery domination will take charge in the future? You have to pick one.
So, I am a big believer that delivery is going to definitely do well.
Okay.
We have all seen that the volumes are there, but at the same time, me as a person would anytime defend dining experiences. I feel food is an emotion, and being social is extremely important to human beings. And wherever in the future we go, the idea is to go out,
Hmm.
right? Not be indoors all the time. um, what is going to happen is it's just segmented now, where earlier people would say want to go out for lunch and dinner both. I think the age group that a certain person is, say example, I am 31 now,
Hmm.
I have work in the day, I can only go out in the evening.
Hmm.
But I would love to go out in the evening.
Hmm.
If I'm in office all day and ordering a delivery in,
Hmm.
I again don't want to order a delivery in the night. It's just not going to make me happy,
Hmm.
right? That is number one. Part number two, I feel being social is a very important need of a human being,
Hmm.
and that can't happen very often via deliveries.
Hmm.
Yeah, a couple of times you want to host people at home and then keep getting this, but everybody's sort of houses or offices are not sort of suitable enough to keep hosting a lot of people. So
Hmm.
eventually then restaurants become spaces where people come together. The
Hmm.
idea of great restaurants have always, or great bars have always been communities coming together,
Hmm.
right? Either to celebrate, to talk, to meet, to socialize.
So let's say if we take 1,000 rupees as the average cost per person. Now, how will you break it down in a way to define a restaurant success? कि इसका 1,000 में से इतना पार्ट कंजम्पशन में जाना चाहिए, इतना पार्ट रेंट में जाना चाहिए, इतना पार्ट इसमें जाना चाहिए, and इतना बचना चाहिए. For someone who's planning a restaurant, can they have a checklist कि इतने पे मेरे को रोकना है? Like you have a checklist for yourself, कि 25% हम रोक देते हैं. For a restaurant, not in casual dining or anything, can you have a standard checklist for that?
Right. So I will break this down between dine-in restaurants and deliveries.
Sure.
Deliveries, my numbers might fluctuate a little because we are not very big in deliveries. But
Hmm.
an idea is for a dining in restaurant, 1,000 rupee APC, you need to ensure that 25 to 28% is your food cost. Would leave you with 72% in terms of gross margins.
Hmm.
Out of that, rent and salaries, you should try and cap it at another 30 to 32%,
Hmm.
not more than that. And then leave another, say, you know, 15 to 20% for all your other costs. Try and get your EBITDAs anywhere between 22 to 28%. This is specifically for 1,000 rupee customer. If this 1,000 becomes 2,000, then your margin would definitely increase. But I mean, at the end, your EBITDA needs to be a 25%. I think in restaurants, it's quite possible to achieve that.
Hmm.
And any restaurateur eventually on P&Ls, maybe not in the start, but eventually should drive towards getting to that number.
25% is
Yeah,
the
25% should definitely be the EBITDA. 25% should not be crossed for your consumption. 75% is your ideal gross margin. 30 to 32% is max for salaries
overhead
and
cost.
rental.
Okay, Pawan, you get a lot of celebrities in your restaurant. Tell me, does celebrities, the hype, do they actually make or break a restaurant or not? Does the hype help?
So, do they make or break a restaurant? Never. I think what it's more dependent on is how good the product is. So yeah, I think core focus product always. Let the product be phenomenal, and after that, you're open to serving all the guests, right?
Mhm.
What definitely happens is if a few celebrities are spotted, the word spreads, more and more people want to come. It's like any other community.
Mm.
If you and me are friends today, I go to a restaurant and I really like it, I will recommend the restaurant to you and you also visit. So it's the same thing with any community.
Mm.
If you have a restaurant, couple of Bollywood celebrities came there, they really liked it. When they meet their community, they'll talk about it. More people will come, and
Mm.
I think that's how it functions.
If we talk about India, is 1 crore rupees enough to start a restaurant?
No. So, what one thing that we would always do is before we start a restaurant, we make this Excel sheet. It's called our CAPEX sheet, right? CAPEX is capital expense. And over here, we put every single rupee we think we're going to spend before the launch of our restaurant. Um, Now, there are some categories that are involved in this. Number one is our fixed cost.
Mm.
This would be everything which by default is fixed, and whatever we do, we can't change the cost of that. Kitchen equipments, air conditioning, bar equipments, crockery, cutlery, glassware, money that we need to pay for our licenses, some money that we will need to pay staff salaries prior to launch, because we might hire our team, say probably 45 days or 2 months before restaurant launch to train them, etc. All of this combines as a part of our fixed cost. Number two is our variable expense. One of that is our interior cost. So what we do is, now this will not change depending, the per square feet rate will not change. What changes is how big the space is. So example, we've capped our interior and fit outs cost at 3,500 rupees a square foot. If this restaurant is 5,000 square feet, it'll be 1.5 crores. If the space is 1,000 square feet, it'll be 35 lakhs. Okay. Right? So that is our variable cost. Then what we add on to that is our security deposits, etc. And all of this comes together as our total restaurant budget that we're going to spend on making the restaurant. Once this sheet is made, the next sheet that we make is our projection sheet. So we know that, okay, say if a particular restaurant is now costing us 5 crores, what do we have to do to recover this 5 crores in the term of our agreement? Our ideal stage would be in 2 years recover the 5 crores and then further make money on that for the next 3 years, right? Now this projection sheet has everything for the first 2 years, a month on month calculation of what should be our top line, gross profits, all our expenses to reach the 25 to 30% EBITDA. If this EBITDA continues for 2 years, after paying taxes, what is the amount we're left with? Is that equal to the 5 crores or no? Right? Okay. And to achieve that, what should our average per person be? If that we meet and we end up getting 300 people to our restaurant every day, which is 9,000 people a month, what is the sale value? And is that matching to the top line we've put in our projections? Okay. Further breaking it down, if this is the APC we need and a person or say 2 people would end up ordering 2 appetizers, 1 main course, 1 dessert, and they'll probably have 2 drinks, is then the cost of that menu meeting this APC? This is how detailed we go even before locking the property. So it's sort of a restaurant blueprint that we follow. Once we have all of these numbers in place, it only then makes sense to deep dive, because now you know that if I'm planning to start a South Indian restaurant that sells dosa and idli, I am never going to be able to meet 2,500. Can I then spend 5 crores? No. So the cuisine then will dictate the APC. Okay. Right? All of these things are linked. So me as a person, when I'm starting anything, the idea is that my emotional decisions need to match my financial output that I'm going for. Emotional decisions would be cuisine. What is the kind of service I want? Do I want to put Italian marble on the floor? Do I want to buy taps of a Kohler, or should I buy taps of a local company to save money there, right? All of these decisions will actually depend on when am I getting my capex back.
Okay. The MIS is important.
The MIS is eventually the most important, right? And once my projections are done and we sit on our MIS on a month-on-month basis, we compare it to the projections we had made and keep mapping ourselves, are we doing better or not?
That's a very interesting outlook. Okay. So let's say once the restaurant is established, it's open to accept customers.
Yeah.
How can someone get customers for the restaurant?
So in the start, of course, it's way more tougher. Over time, after you have a certain name or a brand image in the market, more people want to come and try it. But initially, if I had no sort of network at all and I start a restaurant in a location where I don't belong, say if I'm from Bombay, I had to open a restaurant in Indore. First, again, I would make sure that my product is banging for people in Indore. I know for a fact, or my understanding is that if a certain person in Indore would visit my restaurant, my first thought is, will he want to go and come back with different groups? Right? So if Ujjwal visits my restaurant, will Ujjwal then want to tell his friends, guys, I went to this restaurant, very good, next time we have to go together? Will Ujjwal also tell this to his girlfriend? Will Ujjwal also tell this to his parents? If Ujjwal wants to come back with 4 different groups, then I know I'm going to be successful, right? So number one, the word of mouth is your byproduct. You need to optimize for that within your space, right? So number one, make your product banging that more and more people want to spread word of mouth. Part number 2 is definitely leverage creators. In today's time, creators help you spread the word the fastest. Every time we start a restaurant, we try and invite as many, or especially our list of creators who we really like and whose content we really follow. We invite all of them to come try our restaurants. We always, after they've tried it, we ask them how their experience was. We request them to talk about it. So via their stories and reels, etc., a lot of more people find out. Number 3 that we do is leverage meta ads. That's again huge for us. We try and ensure that a decent budget is kept for that, to be able to ensure that we reach millions of people in a certain location and keep targeting them again and again. WhatsApp, or rather say any CRM platform, is again important. We use a couple of them, but that helps you reach out to a certain database very regularly. If I know 9,000 people are visiting per month, and in a year I have a lakh 8,000 customers, I can retarget them via these messages and keep them posted about things that are happening at the outlet. So these are just a couple of them. There are many more, and it just helps you keep increasing your customer base a lot.
चलो let's talk about numbers now.
Yes.
अगर किसी को restaurant open करना है, let's say in Bombay, what is a step-by-step action plan and how much money they would need and how can they get customers to begin with?
Right. I will talk about the space of casual dining restaurants because that is when my experience, my specialty, my core focus lies. Again, I think restaurants is too large a category. Everything from QSRs to delivery or ghost kitchens to casual dining restaurants, bars, fine dining restaurants, they all have their own difference in terms of capex requirements or thought processes. Casual dining restaurants is what I do, so we'll talk about that. The first part for me on how I approach is by finding a good property. The character of the property matters the most to us, right? And is there some history attached to it? What's the location of the property? Everything, all the touch points surrounding a property is what we want to master first. Once we've mastered that and we really like it, then we start thinking what is the brand that would suit here, right? It's not the other way around, ever. At least that's how we've always done it. That is part number two. And then keeping in mind that property, we would think what is that this location actually wants, right? Example, when we were launching Gigi, we knew Bandra needed luxury spaces. We knew Bandra needed spaces which, because in general the houses and the space in Bandra is so cramped, and it is so sort of uh, tight, right? If that's the right word. We wanted our restaurant to feel spacious. We understood that luxury in Bandra is having great space. So when we created Gigi, we made a lobby which was 1,000 square feet, and that is only the entry lobby. The rent of that was almost 1/4 of the total rent of my restaurant, right? But we very carefully and consciously decided to not monetize out of that. And that turned out to be the biggest sort of plus point for us, because when people entered from that lobby, they felt they were approaching, say, probably a 5-star restaurant. But that's the only place where you've actually had a lobby of this size. So our first would be finding the right property, understanding all the touch points around that. Part number two is start developing a brand basis of that property and location. What does the brand need? And do a very detailed market study on the consumer. Who are they and what do they want? Once these two things are done is where the next couple of steps start with, then the cuisine, the team.
You mentioned the script, the whole script play and everything.
Yes. Right. Correct. The experience mapping.
Since you just mentioned about all the dishes and cocktails were from stories that you were a part of, what was the toughest restaurant to build? Any emotionally the toughest?
I'll talk about a failure of mine. Couple of years back, we launched this restaurant called Oi. It was a Latin American restaurant that we started, and it failed terribly. It was the most amount of effort I would have put in my life to run a restaurant. We got a chef ex Gagan. We got a mixologist who came with his own, sense of achievements. Created a space with everything Latin America, the interiors that way, etc. But the biggest quotient is exactly what I told you. I had myself never enjoyed Latin American food. I had not visited Latin America myself. So I was trying to serve something which I'm not. Right? And then everything I did just didn't work well because that is not who I was as a person. I was trying to build something which was outside my own self. It rested somewhere in my imagination, but actually, sort of didn't transcribe on paper. And we eventually did everything possible, changed the cuisine, did everything. But I mean, it was a step wrong taken. So the toughest experience was that, and it eventually led me with the thought that I will never do this again. Let me build places that resonate with my personality, right? Something that if today my wife and I are two co-founders of the business, it needs to be us in that restaurant. So when someone walks in, any corner they go to, they can see a reflection of us, right? Or what we are trying to build versus trying to be someone who I'm not.
Okay. तो अभी मेरे दिमाग में वही क्वेश्चन आ रहा था कि कोविड के बाद वी हैव सीन पीपल शिफ्टिंग बिहेवियरल शिफ्ट
Yeah.
वी हैव सीन विद फूड जेंजी भी बहुत ज़्यादा पॉपुलर होते जा रहे हैं तो क्वेश्चन यही था कि you think you need to change your menu every now and then because of how the economy is functioning, how people are coming up, eating out more? Or do you think you'll stick with what you think, what resonates with you?
So there are a couple of things, right? Number one is, would I go with trends? Never in my life.
Okay.
Right. There are things I've been eating for the last 17, 18 years from the same place. In fact, I get irritated when they change the recipe. Right. There are times I've gone to a place saying, "Aapne ye kyun dal diya?" There's this very famous shop in my locality that serves the best samosas. I love having a samosa pav from there. Once he started adding kishmish in the samosa, I lost my mind. I went to him saying, "Why have you done this?" नहीं, हमको कस्टमर से फीडबैक आ रहा था, थोड़ा इसको और रिच बनाओ. अब लाइक सर आप मत बनाओ, मतलब ड्राई फ्रूट समोसा का कैटेगरी अलग कर दो, आप मेरा समोसा मत छेड़ो, मैं 20 साल से खा रहा हूँ ये, राइट? So there are restaurants of ours also where people come for specific dishes. It would be extremely annoying for them if I said tomorrow, yeah, while they are my most selling items, but now today's standards change, let me remove them, right? So I would never do that. What my way of doing that would, I would probably add a specials menu. I would introduce a new couple of dishes, see what the feedback is, let that menu run for 2 months, right? See actual consumption. If it works really well, then I would probably add it on my menu. I would only remove an item from the menu if consistently, probably for 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, that menu is not selling over a certain number of portions. That too, if that particular item, even if it's low sales, is fine, but if it's really adding a great vibe on my menu, right? If I feel it's not solving any purpose or the intention of having that in the menu lacks, is only then I would think of changing.
So now where do you park your money? The money that you earn.
I'm stuffing it in my gadas.
No, but honestly.
So for number one is internal accruals. Whatever happens in the company is then reinvested into opening more restaurants.
Okay.
Our idea always is, and what we've deeply understood with our restaurants is, equity is way more expensive than debt. So rather than borrowing money to start my restaurants or giving equity to start my restaurants, I would rather take debt and put my own money but retain the equity, and I would not give the equity out, right? So that makes sense for us, and what that also means for us is everything that we save, we keep putting it back in the business to grow the business. Except for that, of course, the usuals: stocks, mutual funds, FDs, little bit property, and trying to grow that. But primarily, right now we're in that phase where there's not much that we're actually removing out and putting it in other forms of business. The restaurants today pay us way more than maybe stocks will, right? So we would want to put our money in the business that we have control over.
Okay. Any one financial decision that you would want to take back?
Take back?
Yes.
As I said,
that Latin America restaurant thing?
No, that was more of
That
an
was a
emotional
mistake.
decision than financial. I think as a financial decision, not that something I would like to take back, but a great learning was, we were in a phase of life where capital was the most expensive currency for us. Today, equity is the most expensive currency for us. At one given point of time, we would very easily give up a lot of equity just to get capital. Today, we would be way more mindful about that.
Thank you so much, Pawan. It was so delightful to have you. This is going to be one of those masterclass for anyone who wants to start a restaurant. And I had a lot of learnings on the experience on how to build a product, because coming from an entrepreneur field, I believe that कि जिस चीज़ में आप believe करते हो उस पे अगर if you stick on to that, that will really help. Because at one point of time I thought मैं उस चीज़ से थोड़ा सा भटक चुका हूँ, but the conversation with you has really helped me. I was just thinking about that only कि अभी मैं इतना हट गया हूँ अपने पाथ से, and you have given me the direction. So thank you so much for sitting with me and having this conversation.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me here, and I look forward to hosting you. Thanks, Ujjwal.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.